Welcome to the chapter or the unit on sleep. Hopefully, this will be a little more entertaining and applied than some of the more basic concepts we've studied thus far. So, first, I want to try to convince you that sleep is a behavior, or sort of a behavior. Except for the rapid eye movements that accompany a particular stage of sleep, sleep is not distinguished by movement. With the exception of the effects of severe pain and the need to breathe, sleepiness is probably the most insistent drive that we can experience. People can commit suicide by refusing to eat or drink, but even the most stoic person cannot indefinitely defy the urge to sleep. We all do it. We must do it. It's not exactly clear why we must do it. There's considerable debate over that, but we all do it. If we go too long without sleeping, we can lose our minds, and we could eventually even die. Hopefully, that wasn't just you after the little speech there. But one thing to keep in mind is that all of many of our behaviors and even innate behaviors, things that were ingrained into us through evolution, uh, you know, many of these fluctuate according to a rhythm. These occur on daily cycles, hourly cycles, yearly cycles. So first, let's consider, what are rhythms? Body rhythms are biological processes that show cyclical variations over time, ranging from hours to years, and reflect the influence of the Earth's rotation upon us. There are four main types of biological rhythms: circannual, circadian, infradian, and ultradian. Circa means approximate and diem, day in Latin. A circadian rhythm is really the most important one, and what I'm going to emphasize the most because I feel that this has the strongest influence on many of the human behaviors that you think of that first come to mind. We're not really talking so much about hibernation or fattening up for the winter, these sorts of things. Humans, well, and no doubt that those things do occur, but we're talking about I do want to emphasize circadian rhythms. Humans demonstrate a series of changes, including temperature, heart rate, respiration, and metabolism over this period. Uh, and many of these focus on the sleep-wake cycle. The sleep-wake cycle is technically, it can be dissociated from circadian rhythms. But again, a lot of this is tied to how we, conceptually think about human uh, daily cycles. Ultradian are cycles that occur in less than one day. Sleep can be a good example of an ultradian rhythm. As you sleep, you pass through differing stages of sleep. There's, for example, just at the basic level, light and deep sleep. So these would be ultradian rhythms going through the sleep process. You also have infradian rhythms, meaning anything lasting longer than a day. A good example here would be the women's menstrual cycle, which lasts about 28 days. The menstrual cycle occurs in all primates, I might add. In rodents, they actually don't have a menstrual cycle. They have something known as an estrus cycle, which is hormonally comparable, but the timing is different, and there's no shedding of the intermedial lining, so there is no blood, amongst other things. It is, a little different. But anyway, a circannual rhythm occurs yearly or annually. An example of this would be non-human primates, hibernation, and waking patterns. And of course, these things do occur in humans as well. But again, I am primarily going to emphasize circadian rhythms on the exam. Many different species show circadian rhythms. flowers. I mean, like these time-lapse videos, there's so many out there now, but these time-lapse videos of sort of the daily behaviors of plants opening to the sun, closing to the sun, it's just absolutely beautiful. And the sun is one of the primary, variables out there that is in training these rhythms to occur. And it does so in people as well. So one question we will consider is what happens to our circadian rhythms when you get rid of the sun? Um, so if bodily rhythms show a similar daily pattern for people with different lifestyle styles, it would seem that these rhythms are part of our nature and not our upbringing or nurture. So the next question would be is whether they are natural and triggered internally or whether they rely on external cues in the environment. These external cues in the environment or variables are known as Zeitgebers. Zeitgeber is German for a bringer of light, which is exactly what we're talking about in terms of the sun. But there can be other Zeitgebers or bringers of light, but the sun is the most important for most of our daily lives. The development of studying circadian rhythms and sleep labs really goes back to Michael Siffre, who was a 23-year-old French geologist who lived in total isolation for several months. He was buried 375 feet inside a subterranean glacier in the French Alps, and he had no Zeitgebers like daylight to mark time. When Siffre emerged on September 14th, he thought it was August 20th. His mind had lost track of time, but oddly enough, his body had not. While in the cave, Siffre telephoned his research assistants every time he woke up, ate, and went to sleep. As it turned out, he unintentionally kept regular cycles of sleeping and waking. An average day for Siffre lasted a little more than 24 hours. From this study, it was concluded our internal clock must have a 25-hour cycle, and that our Zeitgebers must reset the clock to our usual 24-hour day. He was correct. Much of this has been, confirmed using animal studies that I'll show you some examples of here in a minute.
Every creature on this earth lives out its life in a series of biological waves. Knowingly or not, we're all prisoners of the years, the seasons, the tides, the cycles of the moon, the axis of the sun, light and dark. Among us all, the rhythms of the earth are closely linked to the rhythms of the brain. We humans may seem different. We're often unaware that we too have inherited those cycles. We have learned to time ourselves by clocks of our own making and to forget the beat of the earth, the beat of our brains. But speed up this music of life, and suddenly we might see that our days, months, and years are marked by natural peaks and dips, moments of alertness and energy, specters of inattention and inertia. Within our very brains are submerged global tides, lunar moods, from which no window, however airtight, can insulate us. One of the best times to visualize our internal rhythms is during the various stages of sleep. At intervals of about 90 minutes, we pass through periods of REM, or rapid eye movement sleep. Our bodies are asleep, but our brains are very active. These periods, brief at the beginning, become longer as the night advances. During these times, the eyes dart behind the lids while the brain is infused by waves of vivid dreams. And so the night advances, pulsed by 90-minute cycles, vivid dreams, deep sleep. vivid dreams, deep sleep. In inventor Jesse Salb's computer images of our brain's electrical activity, nearly 5 hours of sleep have been compressed into 20 seconds. The 90-minute flashes of recurring dream sleep appear like waves on a beach. But what precisely do these rhythms of sleep mean to us when we're awake? Do our brains run, for instance, exactly on a 24-hour schedule? In the summer of 1972, a French cave explorer, Michel Siffre, lived deep in a Texas cave for 7 months in order to observe the rhythms of his brain in a world where there was no day, no night, no summer, no fall. What he found was not exactly what he expected.
When you are beyond time, I was beyond time without any time cues, no television, no radio, nothing, no watch. You live following your mind. It's only your brain will function. Then you have, it's black. You have not the alternance of sleep, of day and night. In the cave where I was, in Texas, it's semi-tropical cave. No sound, nothing. Darkness completely. At a certain moment, you decide you are awake. It's curious because you are not sure. But well, in moving the eyes, you decide. Then you wake. You open the light and your day begins when you light on the light.
Every day for all those 7 lonely months, Michel Siffre took painstaking measurements of all his vital functions, sleeping and waking. Blood pressure, brain waves, body temperature, performance skills, heart rate. With the aid of a camera, a computer, and a telephone link-up, his behavior and data were monitored and processed by a surface support team.
Okay.
And what did Siffre confirm? That we humans do indeed possess internal alarm clocks that ring even when there's no day, no night, no season.
Déjeuner, menu, 211. 211, okay?
The body for its various functions. It knows to eat when there's no lunch break, to wake when there's no sun, and to sleep when there's no sunset. Siffre confirmed the curious finding that the body's day is not identical to the 24-hour day. Soon after he descended into the cave, his so-called day lasted 25 hours. Yet he never could tell that it was different from the 24-hour days he used to spend on the surface. Michel Siffre's Life Beyond Time demonstrates that a very old part of our brains, if left unrestrained, operates on a 25-hour schedule, causing our bodies to advance about an hour a day against the clocks of our own invention. As it turns out, his 25-hour clock is common to most of us, even though we must live according to a 24-hour day.
Right. So that old region of the brain is called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, and it's located in the hypothalamus, and something that we will talk about in great detail here. Another way to test circadian rhythms is to alter our environmental cues. So in one study performed by Folkert in 1985, participants lived in temporal isolation for 3 weeks, isolated from natural light and other time cues. The clock initially ran to time, but gradually quickened until it indicated a passing of 24 hours for a 22-hour period. All but one of the participants kept pace with the clock, demonstrating a strong free-running rhythm. So here's what I mean by free-running rhythm. That is what you see when essentially you take away the Zeitgeber, or the giver of the light. What you see to the left here is, very reminiscent of what you see during a rat running experiment. If this isn't from a rat running experiment, then it's an experiment designed to look just like it. But what you do here is you have an animal live in a chamber for, weeks. And rats are nocturnal. So what they do is when the light goes out, that's when activity begins. And that's also when activity is the highest. And then they'll run pretty consistently throughout the active cycle, which is dark. And then when the lights come on, they stop running. But if you completely get rid of that, you'll see that they begin free running on around a 25-hour cycle. And what this results in is their activity phase advancing by about 1 hour a day. And that's what you see happening in this graph here. The sleep would be in black, but it could also be, running in a running wheel if it was a rat. And you can see that behavior is tied to the light and the dark. Now, when you eliminate the sun and you have the patient either in all light or all dark, you see that the animals begin to phase advance about an hour a day. And this sort of shift that you can see occurring over time, similar to what Michael Siffre reported. And then as soon as you retrain or reintroduce the Zeitgeber, you can see things return to being normal. If you've done a lot of international travel or served in the military or anything like this, you probably know a lot about jet lag. And if you've had much experience with this, you know that it takes about 1 day to recover for every hour that you shift. So I mean, you go to Europe, you shift 4 to 6 hours. Hopefully, you didn't just schedule a 4-day vacation over there, because you're never really going to become get out of your discombobulated state. There are, some individual differences. Interestingly, these change with age as well. There are people that prefer a 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Or 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. cycle, and late starters that prefer a 10 a.m. to 1 a.m. cycle. At one point in my life, I was a late starter. Now I'm very much an early riser. I, am always up around 6. What everyday applications could we gain from studies such as these? How useful is this sort of research? Deciding the best time to study is one thing that, could be triggered here. I have even heard certain school districts considering this literature, because there is a literature that shows that adolescents are more typically late risers than early risers. So, if we were to do something crazy like modify the school day to be from like 10 to 3 rather than 8 to 1, maybe the students would be able to learn better. Medications are a tremendous consideration here. Your hormones, your neurotransmitters, all of these shift throughout the day. So depending on when you take your psychiatric medication, you could have a completely different effect. So, and to be clear, we don't know enough to tell you exactly when the right time of day to take that SSRI is. Usually, especially with SSRIs, the medical doctor would tell you to take them at a time where side effects are going to be minimized. So, they might have you take it before bed if you're having bad side effects through the day, or, if you're more tolerating of it, maybe it will be, or if it's disrupting with your sleep, they would tell you to take it at the beginning of the day. But I don't know that they are to the point, or that we are at the point that we are, using circadian biology to tell you when to take the drug. I think that will be something to consider in the future. Circadian is diurnal and nocturnal combined. I mean, diurnal would be the day cycle, nocturnal would be the night cycle. Famously, there are, animals and ecosystems that are associated with the diurnal versus nocturnal cycle. Also, plenty of fun, and bad applications of this through the years. One famous example occurred in Hawaii. I believe it was cats they brought in to get rid of a rodent infestation. But they made the horrible error of bringing in a nocturnal animal to take out a diurnal animal, which I guess wouldn't have been the case there, because both rodents and cats are nocturnal. So there is another animal at play here. But regardless, this is famous on the Hawaiian Islands. They've tried to use science to for population control, but did a shoddy job at it by not taking in nocturnal versus diurnal considerations and picking the species that they wanted to introduce as predators. Zeitgebers are regulated by the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or the SCN, and the hypothalamus. They are so in the suprachiasmatic nucleus, there is a series of 4 proteins that basically cycle like a pacemaker throughout this 25-hour period. And then things like light, especially blue light, can trigger glutamate release into the suprachiasmatic nucleus to sort of keep it going, keep the party going. That is why, to this day, hospitals pump blue light into the, throughout really most of the hospital to keep the staff alert, awake. This is also why they make all these glasses now to prevent blue light. They make these things called nighttime glasses now, that block blue light. And the biology does support this idea that if you block blue light from stimulating the retinohypothalamic tract, you would see less glutamate release into the SCN from that light Zeitgeber, allowing your traditional cycle to pass through. Here is what a typical cycle might look like. Here you can see a rhythm that lasts about 24 hours. Really, the human experience is more around 24.2, 24 to a half hours is what I learned. It's not quite 25. It's in between 24 and 25. But many of our activities fall along the cycle, including activity. You are most active at certain times within the circadian cycle. Your temperature fluctuates. You're going to be hotter and colder at certain times of the day. There will be differences in how wakeful or sleepy you are at different times throughout the circadian period. Your hormones are secreted along the circadian cycle, and there are some very interesting considerations there. One for men, is testosterone is highest when you wake up, and it constantly declines over the course of the day. So, if you wanted to time that workout in a period that you think your testosterone would be highest, you might want to get that morning workout in. And it also, I think, right. There are a lot of misnomers out there about the relationship between testosterone and behavior. Take my hormones and behavior class, and we can talk a lot about those. But in general, testosterone is poorly understood, right, and is lowest in the evening. And it also makes me wonder sometimes, like what people do to, how do behaviors change over the course of the day to respond to that drop in testosterone. Are you more likely to see violent behavior in the evening or in the morning? Like, is the testosterone driving the violence, or is the drop in testosterone leading to uh, the maybe the person to seek out behavior that would increase testosterone levels, including aggressive behavior? Uh, anyway, that's for another class, but there's a lot to think about there. Eating and drinking also follow a circadian period. The main pacemaker for the endogenous or internal rhythm is the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or SCN. This is a small group of cells located in the area of the brain called the hypothalamus. It's called the suprachiasmatic nucleus because it lies just above the optic chiasm, a big cross that you see when you look at the bottom of the brain. Therefore, it can receive information directly from the eye, and the rhythm can be reset by the amount of light, particularly blue light, entering the eye. Here you can see the suprachiasmatic nucleus right under that cross of the optic nerves that you can see, like if you look at the base of any brain. And then the axons that conduct through this suprachiasmatic or retinohypothalamic tract to the suprachiasmatic nucleus can lead to glutamate release into the SCN, like I said, basically just keeping the party alive. We have these rods and cones that you might learn about, but in addition to rods and cones, we have these specialized ganglion cells, and these are especially sensitive to blue light and stimulate the retinohypothalamic tract to lead to the selective release of glutamate into certain areas. So what sets the clock? The Zeitgeber is the main factor that can influence the clock. This is the stimulus that resets the biological clock, for example, blue light. And this entrains our rhythms to be in this 24-hour cycle and prevent the free running, which is, if you wanted to get technical, probably around 0.3 to 0.5 rather than a full day. But yeah, we are not running on this perfect 24-hour cycle. For that to be maintained requires, light to act on the brain. Free running rhythms do occur across this 24-plus-hour period where you see a slight phase advance each day. This is going to be about 20 minutes to half an hour, not quite a full day or not quite a full hour. And again, I think it becomes very simple to think about this when you think of jet lag. The opposite would be occurring, if you fly 4 hours. It might take 4 or 5 days to shift back until you feel like you're completely normal again. Right. Suprachiasmatic nucleus lesions disrupt circadian rhythms. The cycling completely becomes chaotic. Suprachiasmatic nucleus tissue can be maintained in vitro and retains cyclicity. And then this is my coolest, my favorite experiment here. It's just so cool to me. So if you take the suprachiasmatic nucleus out of one rat and graft it into the brain of another rat that you've removed their suprachiasmatic nucleus from, rat 2 will acquire the cycle of rat 1. It's just amazing. I mean, like you could raise one to be, living on a completely shifted 12-hour cycle from the other, put in the other for the first suprachiasmatic nucleus, all of that's out the window, and they go with what's encoded in that SCN. The pathway in the visual system from the retina to the suprachiasmatic nucleus plays a role. These retinal ganglion cells contain a photopigment known as melanopsin that is light sensitive, particularly to blue light. So the way the suprachiasmatic nucleus works is as follows. You have a production of a protein for a number of hours. The protein specifically is known, there are two, and then they form these things called dimers. So you have these two proteins come along called clock and BMAL. They have to couple and bind together. That is something that they are, biologically, engineered to do. So they are also designed to decay over the period. That bond is designed to decay over the period of about 12 hours. But while clock and BMAL are bound, that inhibits the production of other proteins known as cryptochrome and period. However, when clock and BMAL's dimer begins to degrade, that means clock and BMAL can begin to be produced. And they form a dimer that prevents this transcription and translation of clock and BMAL proteins. Guess how long period and cryptochrome are bound? Around 12 hours. So you have these two dimers that are basically composing half and half of the 24-hour plus circadian rhythm. And it's the degradation of each dimer that allows for the other proteins to be translated, to bind, and then form the other half of the cycle. This rhythm affects sleep-wake cycle activity through the pineal gland. And the stimulation of the pineal gland produces the hormone melatonin, which can, produce general sleepiness. When light levels are low, we produce more melatonin. Some doctors also prescribe or recommend the use of melatonin during shift work in periods where you are doing a lot of jet-setting travel. So what about exogenous or external pacemakers? So this clock, BMAL, period, cryptochrome, double dimer thing is what makes the 24-hour cycle occur. So light is considered to be the most dominant Zeitgeber. There are more, but in terms of human behavior, this is, I think, fair to say, the most dominant. Overall, it appears that the sleep-wake cycle is strongly dictated by endogenous pacemakers, but we can override these cues. Under what circumstances, can this happen? It is right. I mean, I don't know. I can make myself go to sleep during the day. You can certainly. Has anybody pulled a late nighter? Anybody gone out to a club past 2 a.m? I mean, there are many ways that this can occur. Oftentimes, they're associated with drug use and drug abuse. Amphetamines are often taken, of course, to break these rules. For the military, modafinil is the drug that is in vogue right now. Modafinil is a fantastic, fascinating one. I would also be willing to bet that a lot of CEOs and senators take modafinil or are prescribed it by their, people that I guess probably would have paid or had their doctors prescribe amphetamines to them so they could work longer and stay fresh and sharp. These days, I think would be taking modafinil to do the same thing. Modafinil has been shown in studies to maintain executive function when circadian rhythms are disrupted. I've worked on the same hall that these experiments were conducted. What happened is that the monkeys were basically kept awake by people like me and annoying music for long, periods of time. and asked to engage in these cognitive tasks like delay, non-match, the sample. Things that gauge executive function and memory, and found that relative to control, modafinil, which is a less abuse-prone psychostimulant, impaired or rectified some of the cognitive impairments brought upon them by disruptions in the circadian cycle. So anyway, those are some of the ways that we've historically cheated the system. Is it adaptive for endogenous rhythms to be reset by external cues so that animals are in tune with seasonal variations in day-night time? This idea of adaptiveness comes from evolutionary perspectives. It refers to the idea that behaviors which persist are more likely to promote ones for survival. It could be life-threatening if we relied solely upon external cues. Therefore, we must not forget the significance of internal ones. One really fascinating thing, I think, to look up in modern history is this idea of like the night shift or the night wake. In pretty recent history, it used to just be part of the daily cycle that everybody would wake up at midnight or 1 in the morning, and then there would be a period of watch and maybe resetting the night watchman, because for survival at that period of time, you didn't have locks on your doors. There wasn't a society protecting you as well. You were more at the mercy of predators around you. So, in that period of history, which again, I think the historical text will show, was not very long ago, it was very common for a variety of societies to wake up in the middle of the night throughout their regular cycle. So that would be one example of an adaptation. But now we don't have to do that, and we might be thriving, living longer as a society, since we can sleep 8 hours, get a good rest in. That allows also greater big picture thoughts and creations to occur, rather than simple survival. Here's yet again another example of the retinohypothalamic tract, conveying information to the suprachiasmatic nucleus. In addition to rods and cones, there are these melanopsin-containing cells that do particularly respond to blue light and release glutamate into the suprachiasmatic nucleus, keeping the party going. Another important consideration is shift work and jet lag. We've already touched on these a little bit. Right. So here is where your 24-hour cycle gets off. Melatonin is one chemical that is manipulated during both shift work and jet lag. So I want to be very specific about what melatonin is. So melatonin and the pineal gland would be signaled by sort of downstream following the suprachiasmatic nucleus. But the pineal gland produces melatonin, which is a hormone that's secreted during the night based off of output from the suprachiasmatic nucleus. So, you can sort of cheat the system a little bit if you still want to get sleepy, but have been shifted. If your circadian clock is off, you can take melatonin to still feel sleepy, even if your SCN and blue light have been telling your body to keep the party alive. Here is just another example bringing this into account. So you have your retinohypothalamic tract acting on the suprachiasmatic nucleus. So here the blue light's telling it to keep the party going. This might lead to changes throughout the body, including the release of melatonin in the pineal gland. But if you supplement it, there is increased melatonin, you could still get sleepy, even though blue light has told you to keep the party going. You can see long-term changes in circadian rhythms following, prolonged periods of, disruption. This is known as shift work disorder in, our modern society. This is a chronic condition that is directly related to people's work schedule, exclusively at night or in rotating shifts. The two primary symptoms are insomnia when a person is trying to sleep and excessive sleepiness when a person needs to be awake. Enhancing lighting in the workplace, including increasing the intensity of the light and shifting the wavelength of light toward blue and at the end of the spectrum, makes it easier for workers to adapt to working at night. Almost all hospitals do this now. All right, this is the last little video clip of this lecture, and hopefully it's fun. And if not, just stop it here and pick up at the next video of my more boring recordings.
Suprachiasmatic nucleus can help you focus.
Deep within the hypothalamus, you will find this locus. It controls your daily rhythm for sleep and wakefulness. Suprachiasmatic nucleus can help you focus. Because at night I work my shift and sleep during the day.
I find I sometimes need a lift to keep the seas at bay.
Our doctor says the reason for our sleepiness is clear. We have shift work sleep disorder, but we don't need to fear. Our suprachiasmatic nucleus will help us focus. Deep within our hypothalamus, we will find this locus. It controls our daily rhythm for sleep and wakefulness. Suprachiasmatic nucleus will help us focus. So what I need to do is shift my circadian rhythm. To do this you can use bright light
Or else melatonin.
Modafinil's another choice to treat my sleep syndrome. Or else we may just fall asleep and crash while driving home. Our suprachiasmatic nucleus will help us focus. Deep within our hypothalamus we will find this locus. It controls our daily rhythm for sleep and wakefulness. Suprachiasmatic nucleus will help us